Y'all have some fans.
This is my spiritual home. I'm in Pennsylvania. This is all home.
You are our hometown hero on this panel. Afternoon, Netroots Nation. How are you? I want you to give a warm welcome to three incredible elected officials. Congresswoman Delia Ramirez from Illinois' 3rd District.
Chi-Town.
Our hometown hero from Pennsylvania 12th District, Congresswoman Summer Lee. And from New Jersey's 11th, Analilia Mejia. Oh, okay, keep that enthusiasm up, and this is gonna be a great conversation. So, Madam Congresswomen, as I was reading through your bios, one thing that stuck out for me is how you each have a background in both grassroots organizing, and you have been in the inside and on the outside. I wanna ask you, how does that lived experience impact your work as an elected official, and what's something that your colleagues in Congress, maybe some in leadership positions, don't understand well about where voters are at right now?
Our hometown hero. Start.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm from Pittsburgh. It's 5 hours away. Right, I rep Pittsburgh hard. It's 5 hours away. You know what? Let me start with the end of it because, what do I think my colleagues, what don't they understand about where voters are right now? It feels like they don't understand anything about where voters are right now. That is actually it's not an easy question, but it's an easy answer, right? They don't understand anything. And I think that part of the problem is that there are so many people in Congress who aren't actually connected to everyday people. And sometimes I think it's easy for us to be responsive to super voters, right? To the people who call us the most, but those aren't the people who are necessarily living all the impacts of our policy decisions. So they don't have to see those people every day. And that kind of ties into what it's like to actually be a grassroots. Like, it's not even that I'm just grassroots, that's authentic. Like, my politics are actually working class. Like, I'm not cosplaying it. It's what I grew up Black working class in the Mon Valley outside of Pittsburgh. So when we're talking about just the urgency around, if we don't do something about our air quality, we're going to keep losing people to, to respiratory illness, to cancer. If we aren't doing anything about our school systems, then, our kids are going to continue to be short-handed. And we're like, this all comes from lived experience. So every time when I go to vote, I can see a real face. I can hear a real voice in my head. I don't have to go through the mail that we get. I know these people because I've been these people. I am still these people. So I think the difference between us.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just would add to what Summer just said, and then I want to talk to you about the inside-outside strategy because I think it's really important. For us, and I would say for me, like, I don't introduce any legislation that doesn't come from the base and the people most impacted by the problem. I know that DC consultants and sometimes DC staff that are very, very removed from everyday struggle of our communities, have great ideas based on whatever the DC consultant in the poll said that you should be working on. Thousands of pieces of legislation that people introduce, but I think it's so important that, for me, when I introduced melt ice and people said, Delia, you shouldn't be saying abolish ICE. Remember what happened in 2018? I said, I'm gonna say abolish ICE, I'm gonna introduce a bill to actually do that, right? Or when people told us we can't talk about blocking bombs to Israel, actually, if you actually talk to your constituents in farm towns and small towns and big cities, they're tired of forever wars. We're going to introduce a legislation. But I'll tell you the last thing, and I think it's really important, because if we're being very frank, we have a lot of colleagues of ours, and no shade to them. There are days that I'm like, dang, I wish I had that. They're married to very wealthy people, or they come in with a lot of wealth, and then they put it into all these LLCs, so you can't tell that they're still actually generating money or becoming richer because they're, investing in stocks. And so they don't often understand what it's like to live off of $12 or $13 an hour. They're not checking that the eggs may have come down, but the milk, not so much. Or the fact that you're gonna spend $100 at Aldi just buying basics. And I'll tell you the last thing for me. I introduced Pensions for All about 7 months ago. And I thought about this a lot. My dad worked in a factory, an industrialized bakery, for 20-something years. Papi got cancer, and unfortunately got kidney cancer. He couldn't keep working. And so, 63 years old, he had to retire from the assembly line. Instead of him getting a pension, a party, a severance, he got a frozen pie. My dad is 75 years old today. And my dad told me last week, Mija, I just got a job. I'm going to go be a maintenance guy at one of the local child care centers because I got to keep working. Your mom and I cannot live off of this Social Security and this $1,100 a month when I'm paying $250 in my Medicare supplemental. So for us, and what Summer just said is so incredibly important, this is not something that we hear about. We live this every freaking day. These policies are not just life-changing for our constituents and our neighbors, they're life-changing for our families, which is why we're not gonna wait until we're in the majority to start introducing legislation that's gonna change people's lives. We gotta start doing it now.
I don't think this is on. Can I borrow?
Yeah.
I'm an organizer, and when the conditions
Can you
don't
check if
suit,
it's on the bottom?
I change the conditions. It's on.
Yeah, honestly, I can hear you.
I don't know, is this working now? Ooh. I was about to take the whole mic off and make it work. Anyway, I'll let it hang for right now. So I would say, similarly to my colleagues, you know, as Delia just said, the reality is working class people, middle class families, we're all falling behind in this moment. Everyone understands that this economy is rigged, that this authoritarian president is out for blood. All they care about is just adding another zero to their offshore bank account, and it is our responsibility to engage our communities and activate them in this moment. You know, I have been a member of Congress for 1 month. Not a lot of time to actually tell you all the things, but I will say I've been an organizer for 25 years, and I know what the assignment is. What we are trying to do is capture governing power. And governing power has 3 facets. One of them is to elect your people into office so that the decision makers are in alignment, like Summer said, like Delia said, in alignment with our communities. But there are 2 other facets that we all have to capture. The first one is we need to shape this narrative. We need to inject our theory of change. We need to be clear about who are the villains and what are our values. We have to do it consistently through multiple avenues because we have to cut through the noise. And then once we've been able to shape this narrative, we need to be more effective and intentional about our demands and not sugarcoat and not water ourselves down, not negotiate with ourselves. I will say in the 1 month that I've been in Congress, the #1 thing that I realized is that you can make things up. I've watched these, no, I'm serious. I've watched these women hold hearings, have pressers, engage people, and do things that traditional Mr. Smith goes to Washington would have never thought about. But that's how we shape a narrative. That is how we set demands, and that is ultimately how we capture the fullness of governing power.
That's right. That's right.
What is y'all's advice for... Folks are so, I think, disillusioned right now, and I think there is a particular disillusion with our elected officials in our state of democracy.
Yes.
What is your advice for how to be an effective advocate and how to move the needle with members of Congress who may, particularly those of us in the audience who may not be represented by folks as progressive as yourselves, as champions of their constituents as yourselves?
You know, the first thing that I would say is that we have to know and accept our power. In a system like this, right, when we are just rapidly descending toward fascism, the first thing that they need is your consent. We can't have a dictatorship. We cannot have fascism without our consent in some way. So we have to do some serious introspection about the ways in which we are consenting to where we're going. Because if we pretend or if we accept that we're powerless, then they will continue to move as if we're powerless, and then it becomes a cycle. So the first thing that we have to do is recognize that throughout history, we have examples of ways in which we have fought back.
Yes.
And they are tried and they're true, which means that we can do it again. But that is the first mental hurdle, right? That
Yes.
we can do it, that we have blueprints to do it,
That
and
we
that
have
there is a
to.
responsibility of each and every one of us. So the second thing is figuring out with the power that we have, where are the pressure points that we can put them. For different people, it's going to look like different things,
Yes.
but each and every one of us has some power. I was just talking to my grandma, my family about, people ask, what can I do? That, in the early days of Trump, they said, well, what are you going to do, Congress? And then soon, very quickly, they said, well, what can we do? And what I learned throughout history is that we always have the power of our organized dollar. We always have the power of our organized money.
Yeah.
And those are sacrifices, right? Because the reality is that we're actually not going to get out of this moment without sacrifice, but sacrifice hurts less when we're actually doing it together. So we have to be strategic. That means that we have to get up and we got to bring more people. We have to have uncomfortable conversations. So the next thing is we got to get out of our comfort zone. The days where we can have polite conversation, we don't got to talk about politics are dead.
That's right.
The days where we don't have to talk
That was
about
a Jedi mind trick
those days
that
are
they played on
gone,
us.
and that's okay. And that might make us a little bit uncomfortable. But to actually will power means that we have to accept that power is ours to will, and not that it's somebody else's responsibility to do it. And last, what I would say about our Congress people, they're all responsive to you. No movement in history has been led by Congress.
Yeah.
So from the Voting Rights Act, from the end of apartheid to the anti-war movements, to women's suffrage, to LGBTQ movement, every single movement has been sparked from outside, which means that so too will this one be. So if you're waiting for your Congress people to meet you, then you got to recognize that they ain't going to move until we move them.
Yes.
So whatever we got to do, every election cycle, everything, we got to call town halls, whatever we have to do, but we have to keep engaged because they are relying on us consenting
Yes.
to their takeover with no fight back. So
Yes.
part of it is just taking one step every single day, and we don't have to go from one step to the long jump. But we got to go from one step to a skip, right? To a jog, to a run, but we got to keep moving.
That's
That's
right.
right. That's
That's
right.
right. And I think it's really important, and I've said this now for the last year and a half. For any member of Congress, if you have a Democratic member of Congress who you've gone to and you said, what are you doing to fight back fascism? What are you doing to stop DHS? What are you doing to stand up against the Jim Crow gerrymandering that you're seeing in the South? And if they're saying to you, well, listen, we're in the minority, we really can't do much, just wait, help us get into the majority. That is a BS excuse
Yes.
to not do anything.
That's right.
And there is so much that they can, in fact, be doing. And so I think it's really important that you not demand less in this moment, you demand more. And you demand that your elected officials stop acting like, oh, I'm in the minority, I can't do anything. You need to become the opposition party.
Yes.
We know what fascism looks like. We know what
Yes.
consolidation of power looks like. It is all happening here. So start acting like an opposing to fascism leader and not just someone that just submits
that's
and gets small and makes excuses.
That's
And I think the other thing that I think is really important as we're having this real conversation is that most of the most devastating legislation, and I'm going to be very blunt with you, we talk about this all the time, and now Analilia is watching some of this happen too, would not have moved, like the SAVE Act that actually takes
Without
away
consent.
the power to vote for women and people in
Yes.
this country, that would not have passed without Democratic votes on that bill.
Listen.
So this excuse that the Republicans are the boogeyman, they're the only ones doing bad, I need you to know that not all Democrats are the same. And there are some people
Not
that
all blue will do.
not all blue will do. A lot of blue sometimes just don't do. That might be.
That was on my campaign lit. That was on my
Y'all
campaign
stumbled
lit.
upon like y'all actually discovered that.
That was on lit. That was on lit.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt you, since we're in a room with communicators, we know that what we are in fact engaging in is an Overton window setting campaign. The president has spent years shifting people's mindset of what is acceptable from our government. He has pulled it all the way to crazy, okay? But our job is to yank it all the way back. And again, we have to demand, as Delia says, we do have to demand more from our institutions, from our representatives. But you know what, Summer, you're spot on. An Overton window campaign is won by having the people be very vocal about what are the concerns and what they will not accept. We will not accept the erosion of constitutional protections. We will not accept the elimination of due process if we allow due process to be stolen from a group of people that some will say, oh, they're outside the margin, they're not important to us, they're not US citizens, we don't care. We just allowed it to be stolen from every single American. This is a tug of war of what we accept and what we reject, and it comes from the floor.
The Voting Rights Act came up a couple of times, and I want to touch on that specifically. When we think about what the Supreme Court has done to the Voting Rights Act, we think about Virginia and redistricting and that being redone almost immediately. I think there's a lot of concern, not just of the increasing authoritarianism of our government, which folks know, but also, I'm just going to say it, I don't think the Trump administration wants a free and fair election.
Of course not.
How has have recent events changed the conversation with the Democratic caucus in Congress? Is the strategy changing? Where are we? And where can this audience help push Democrats who need to be pushed in the right direction? How can we help do that?
Can I first start by saying the John Lewis Voting Rights Act bill should have passed the last time we were in the majority.
Yeah.
And that's shame on us as Democrats that we didn't prioritize and make it happen. And whatever we said about our margins, because I'll tell you, Republicans with less margins than we had when we were in the majority have devastated and passed, 70% of the Project 2025 bill. So I think that's really important. Let me know something, and I want to hear what Summer and Analilia think about this as well, but I don't want to go back to 2024.
It's not enough.
I don't want to go back to 2023.
That's right.
Shit was bad for our people still then. It is worse for our people now. Yeah. So I think it's really important as we're talking about where Democrats are and what they're willing to fight for and how we actually fight for an expanded democracy that includes all of us, but it not be this preservation of a democracy that was so fragile that brought us to this moment, but it be the kind of democracy that fundamentally transforms every single unit of government and society so that we're never here again. And I think that's really important. I don't want to go back.
Look, since we're jumping around, for me, the bottom line is that we need to go back into our communities and realize that the people on the margins are the margin of victory. We left 90 million people didn't vote in 2024, and it's not their fault. It's that we did not speak to the issues that were keeping them up at night. And let me tell you, again, I've been in Congress for 1 year. I've been an organizer for 25.
Come on, but it feels like a year,
I'm sorry, I said a year.
It feels
for
like
a
a
month.
year.
It does feel like a year. For a month, I've been an organizer for 25 years. This last cycle, I literally had to beg so many people, not y'all, that we needed to pay attention to, when we talk about housing, the fact that so many establishment Democrats and most certainly Republicans, they speak about home ownership, forgetting that like a great majority, especially of Democratic voters, rent. So many people have housing insecurity, how you can't even get to the point of home ownership when the entire system is rigged. But we have this muscle memory, this way of capitulating to moneyed interests, to big banking, to corporations, and then forget that so many people on the margins then get completely erased. And then we're mad at them for not showing up. It is our job, I still count myself as an organizer, it is our job though to continue to crank it up and to say, you know what, whenever you get any politician, myself included, feeding you soup and telling you, no, I know you care about the homeless or housing or home insecure or whatever, but I want to talk to you about, making home ownership more possible. You need to yank them back into reality and say, what happens to the people on the margins if you continue to pretend like they're not there? They're not going to be there for us to preserve this democracy. So I think we have to totally flip around what we prioritize, not only as organizers, not only as communicators, and also as representatives. I'll stop talking now.
So, I recognize we only got a couple minutes, and I took a second here because I actually have a lot of feelings about I'm sorry, the question that actually didn't get addressed, which is about voting rights.
Yeah.
And I think that part of that is because it is a third rail because people think it's a black issue. And a whole bunch of people don't want to talk about black issues. And a whole bunch of people think that it's black people's job to solve it.
Yeah.
And even as the question was framed, it was like, well, what do the Democrats think? I'm like, actually, I want to know what Americans think. I want to know. I want to know what folks in this crowd think. How are you changing your life, recognizing that what happens in the South isn't something that is a South problem. What happens to black folks ain't a black folks problem. And I think for too long we've been sitting around thinking like, oh well, what black people gonna do? Y'all not gonna have any district. Y'all won't have any voting representation anymore. But let me tell you what happens if we don't all collectively. However you identify, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green, DSA, whatever it might be, if we don't all figure this out, or if we're waiting for black people, I promise you, everything that you care most about is housing, environmental justice, mass gun violence, educational equity, Medicare for all, any of the things that you care most about will now be tied to the fate of black people down in the South.
That's right.
Fighting back against illegal, racist gerrymander. So you better make it your problem.
That's right.
You better make these black people problems your problem. Because for as long as racism is pervasive in our system, I promise you it will come back to bite your ass.
That's right.
Every single time, and it has every single time. If we're talking about immigration and ICE, the model for that was mass incarceration of black people. If we're talking about the violence of ICE, it was police violence and police brutality was the model for that. If we're talking about the erosion of your civil liberties, the model for that was how they have attacked the least of these, the most marginalized of these. So I think that if the conversation or if our plan isn't different, then we are not thinking straight about where we actually are. We cannot afford to be silent. So if you marched out of No Kings, and I'm gonna need you to, we gotta get the outside. People need to know how you feel. Because again, if you're not saying anything, and we don't hear a lot of people saying anything, then they think you consent.
Yes.
Right. And I don't hear enough people with enough urgency about this. The loss of up to 20 seats. Was that the number? Like 20 to 40?
It's insane.
20 seats?
Yeah.
I don't care what color that seat is. The loss of 20 seats for the Democratic Party means that we have another 2 to 4 to 8 to 12 to 20 to infinity years of Republican minority enshrined power and rule.
That's right.
All of us will suffer and our democracy will not make it. So we need to change the courts. We need a severe court reform. We need to get money out of politics. That's why I introduced Abolish Super PAC. There's a money in politics problem to everything that we're doing. But absolutely, yes, if Democrats are going to earn support, then we also have to move on these things. And that means that we have to make some big changes so that people feel confident in us so that they can participate again. Because as long as people are functionally disanfranchised, then they will act disenfranchised. Exactly. And then that also perpetuates the problem. So we all have to move differently now because the conditions are different. And because the enemy is moving differently. They're building something, and they have been building something for decades. This is not new. This is not out of the blue. But we have to fight just as hard. Like, do you believe that a better world is possible, or do you believe that a better world is your responsibility?
That one.
Is a better world our responsibility? Then we have to all find a way of building it collectively, or we will watch Trump and Vance and Elon Musk and corporate billionaires and all those people. I promise you, they're trying to build a world, and it's for them, and it is not for us.
They're building it.
Well, I wish I could talk to y'all all afternoon. I really do. I have so many more questions. But thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you
for having us.